she did sign up for Toastmasters, and then she quit. But eventually, she decided she was ready to overcome her fears, so she joined again. And in spite of all her fears and terror, she kept stepping forward. Wendy is a full-time freelance illustrator, part-time author, instructor, how do I say that word? Caricaturist, and has volunteered as a guest speaker for public schools around Cleveland, Amherst, and North Carolina. Her mantra is, if there doesn't seem to be a way, create a way. She's an advocate of self-publishing and has published 6 books of her own, including her first fiction novel last year called Somewhere in Between, an adventure in the afterlife. Wendy will be speaking with us today about what stepping out of her comfort zone has done to change her life, as well as how it has influenced her 2 children, Jack and Rose. Please welcome Wendy Fedan.
For that wonderful introduction. Thank you so much. Fellow Toastmasters, and welcome all you wonderful guests. I'm so happy to be doing this. So, stepping out of your comfort zone. Wonderful topic for me, because I'm stepping out of my comfort zone today. One of my favorite things to do, other than write books and everything else I do, is to watch movies with my kids. They are so much fun to watch movies with. Of course, kids, they'll watch movies over and over and over again until they have them memorized. Well, that's me too. I'll watch a movie over and over and over, just so that anytime I want to, I can plug the movie into my brain and I can replay it anytime I want. So, the one movie I would like to talk about is Monsters University, one of my favorite movies I like to watch with the kids over and over and over. And I don't want to spoil it for you if you haven't seen it, but I will tell you, Mike Wazowski, this little green guy, it's his dream to become a scarer someday. All he wants to do is to be a scarer. And he is, thank goodness, able to get into Monsters University, into the scaring program. And he is met with so much resistance. Nobody, except for him, believes that he can do it. Everyone tells him, you're just not scary. I mean, look at it, he's cute. Even the Dean Hardscrabble, head of the school, tells him flat out to his face, you're not scary. It's heartbreaking. And then, once again, I won't give away for any of those who haven't seen the film. Go see it, because it's really fun. But by the end, she says to him, you've done something that no one else has ever done before, she tells him. You surprised me. And the last time I was watching this movie, I was sitting next to my daughter, Rose. She had just entered the drama club, and for the first time, she sang in front of people for her audition. And I didn't know she could sing. So she surprised me, she surprised everyone in her class, everyone who heard her sing. And so I nudged her in the living room when we were watching this movie, and I said, isn't it fun to surprise people? And she said, yeah. It's fun to surprise people. So, confession time for me. And thank you, Marianne, for actually introducing this subject a little bit. Yes, I am a social anxiety person. I have suffered with anxiety my entire life, and it's not something that ever goes away. Yes, just to explain a little bit what social anxiety is all about. Fear of public humiliation or embarrassment, overly concerned about offending other people, afraid to do even the smallest things in front of other people, like asking for something. Like, I remember vividly actually asking for a straw, or being afraid to ask for a straw, just because they forgot to give it to me. There weren't any straws available on the counter, and I was stuck. I was like, well, maybe I'll just go without a straw, because who really needs a straw anyway, right? You may experience anxiety, palpitations, social isolation, sweating. Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, okay. Check all those boxes for me. And if not treated, social anxiety or any anxiety disorder can last many years or a lifetime. For me, it existed over half of my life, and I allowed it to dictate everything I did. Everything. It was debilitating, until finally my boss encouraged me, almost demanded me to join Toastmasters. Yeah, not the easiest thing for a person with social anxiety to go through. Yes, it was a tortuous experience for me. But so I said a speech maybe once a year, and I decided, okay, that wasn't going to help me. The Toastmasters isn't for me. It's just not going to work. Like Mike Wazowski, instead of other people telling him he couldn't do it, I was telling myself, I can't do it. It's just not possible. Until finally I forced myself one year to do 6 speeches in 3 months to meet, to finally get my Toastmasters, competent Toastmasters award. And after I did that, I felt like I could do anything. And I did. I entered every contest I could, because it was like this wall had come down, and I finally thought, oh my gosh, look what's possible. I would ask myself, what's possible now? Now that I can go up and talk in front of people without feeling like I'm going to throw up, what else can I force myself to do? What else can I try to do? So I entered contests, and I actually won trophies, which built up my self-esteem more and more. And then my husband made this trophy for me out of paper. Wow. When I lost a big contest. my best trophy for losing. An important thing to know, the fear never goes away. It never does go away. I mean, of course, yes, I've conquered a lot, and the more you try, the more you step out of your comfort zone, the easier it will be. But the fear is always there. I woke up yesterday morning with an upset stomach, thinking about today. Yesterday morning, I thought, oh no, what's it going to feel like tomorrow? So what I've learned to do myself, I've kind of taught myself some steps. I recognize the fear. Okay, yes, I'm anxious. Yes, I'm nervous. That's okay. A lot of people feel like this, but I'm deciding to take the challenge. I'm deciding to be brave. I've done this in the past, even if you haven't done this in the past. And tell yourself, I'm going to face it. Imagine your success. That's important as well for me. I imagine how I'm going to feel when I finish the speech. How wonderful will it feel to say, yes, I did it, I survived it. Face the fear, go through it, conquer it, and then I have this in big, huge letters, bask in your achievement, because that is so important. To acknowledge to yourself that you did it, no matter what it is, whether it's going and asking for a straw at the counter in a fast food restaurant. Tell yourself, yes, you know what? I survived it. It wasn't so bad. And then I started doing all kinds of other things. That gate was open, the wall was down. I started asking myself after Toastmasters, what else can I do? So I started leading creative women's spiritual retreats in various places. My usual was Lakeside, Ohio. It was my favorite spot. And I organized this entire retreat. Thank you, Toastmasters, once again, since I was an officer and I understood how to plan events. That helped me baby step through this process. I hired other people to do different workshops, and I organized it. And then I would do some of the workshops myself. I did this for about 5 years in a row. And I got this amazing, I thought, I want my friends in North Carolina to come to these retreats, but they won't come all the way up in Ohio, so I'm gonna put the retreat down there in North Carolina in the mountains. And so I did a couple of retreats, in addition to the Ohio retreats, down in North Carolina. I mean, it's amazing what you can do when you actually think, okay, when you ask yourself, what can I do next? What is possible now? And then it might not seem as momentous as leading a retreat, but it was a big deal when I finally put out my first book. And I stepped into that bookstore and I said, would you like my book to be in your bookstore? So, yes, it happened. It happened at Max Back Paperback in Coventry in East Cleveland. Quite an achievement for me to actually see my book on a bookshelf. That was wonderful. It's on the bottom, but still. So I continued to finish up my series. This was a book series that I really had to get out, and it was once again facing that fear of putting myself out there. When you write a book and you put it out there, that's a very vulnerable thing to do. It's hard to do that, and just to believe, well, is anyone going to read this? Is anyone going to be interested? This is my story. It was a story from when I was 12 years old, moving from Canada to the United States. Is anyone going to care about this? I was like, I don't care. I'm just going to put it out there and see what happens. And during this process, I was really happy to see that I was encouraging my daughter to write, and she would tell me that her friends were really interested in writing. So once again, with stepping out and trying something different, I organized a little writing group with my daughter and her friends to meet every week at my house. It was wonderful. It was a wonderful experience. One thing I never would have thought to do, I never would have dreamed to do before Toastmasters. And I had fun making little certificates when they would meet their goals on their writing goals, and I would present them in their classrooms to them so that their fellow classmates could see their achievements and be inspired by them. So I just went crazy. I started visiting schools and actually talking in front of, I wish there was a picture of all the kids. I did this speech 3 times down in North Carolina at a school called Porterridge, and all the grades came up in different assemblies, and I spoke about creativity and writing, and it was amazing. I spoke in front of hundreds of kids that day. That was just, and I was actually paid a stipend. So I thought, I am a professional speaker now! That was huge. So, and then I just, of course, I participated in as many events as I could. Author Alley in East Cleveland, and now I'm starting to teach painting classes. Those drink while you paint kind of classes. Those are fun, and it's a little intimidating because now I'm wearing one of those wire things, because when there are many people there, I have to speak into this little speaker so everyone can hear me. And that's just a lot of fun. And last year I had the opportunity to actually do a class in the Cleveland Institute of Art. It was a continuing education class, an evening class in the summer. And I got to teach about writing children's books, about creating children's books, picture books. And this was me saying goodbye to my classroom. After everyone had left, bye classroom. It was so fun. So now I'm just putting myself out there with all my books, enjoying that whole process. And last year, it was a big deal for me to put out my first work of fiction, which involved kind of cheating a little bit. It's interesting when you write fiction, you actually put a lot of yourself into it. There's a lot of truth in fiction, actually. And that's what I discovered while I was writing this book. I thought, this is a little fearful, this is very nerve-wracking. Dare I put this stuff out there in the world? But it's fiction. So I was like, okay, it's fiction. But in my mind, in myself, you know, I kept telling myself, however, there's quite a lot of myself in this book, a lot of my own imaginings and beliefs. So I was very, very thrilled when I stepped out once again of my comfort zone and approached the vice principal of the school where my kids went, and actually said, because she was a leader of the book club, and asked, would you like Mike to, you know, have the book club read my book? It's set in Amherst, which is where the school was, and it was, there were a lot of local things involved with the book, so I thought, oh, maybe I've got a chance. And she was actually very enthusiastic, and she invited me to come and meet the students who were reading the book, and I got to actually hear them talk about the book actually after they read it. Mm-hmm. That was just, can you imagine how wonderful that was? Once again, none of this would ever have happened before Toastmasters, before I had made that initial decision to try to face that fear, that basic fear of talking to people, meeting people. And here's the best part, yeah. The best part is when you inspire other people. It's hard for me not to get teary-eyed, but my son, we have a lot of issues with him. He's ADHD, he's had a lot of trouble in school, and some self-esteem issues, pretty serious ones. And last year, I made the decision to speak in front of his grade and share my story about writing. I talked about the books that I had written at that time, and he was sitting there in the middle of that assembly, and I didn't see him, but he said he was crying. And he said, I'm just so proud of you, Mom. And then a couple months later, he decided, well, you're just my mom. So if you can do it, I can do it. So I can't do it. So he did a magic show in front of his entire grade. His entire grade. That's not even everybody in that picture. I was swelling with pride at what I had inspired my son to do. From my example, from facing my fear, because he knew me. He knows me. He knows it's not easy for me to do this kind of thing. But he thought, if she can do it, which makes me feel happy. It's humbling, and it makes me feel so wonderful. So I want to just leave you with the question to ask yourself. What wall have you been putting up for yourself? What limitations have you been putting on yourself? There's always something that gets in the way of what we want to do, of meeting our full potential. It's fun to surprise people. It's very fun to surprise people. But you know what's even better? Is surprising yourself.